And the empty tomb it is taken from, it is from 20, verse 1 to 21, from 1 to 25. 21, 25. If I say it again, from John 20, verse 1 to 21, chapter 21 to verse 25, the empty tomb. Now it said, the first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. That's verse 1 of chapter 20. Then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and saith unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. And we know not where they have laid him. That's verse 1 and 2 of chapter 20 in the book of John. Then verse 3 said, Then Peter therefore went forth, and the other disciple, and came to the sepulchre. And came to the sepulchre. But before we go further, I want to ask a question concerning Mary Magdalene. And the question is, who is or who was Mary Magdalene? Who was Mary Magdalene? Anybody could answer that? Who really was Mary Magdalene? Anybody want to speak? Take the mic and do that.
Hey, brother, how you?
The question was, who was Mary Magdalene? Okay, if no one did to speak, I'll continue. So, okay, go ahead.
Mary Magdalene was one of the women who followed Jesus, that Jesus had cast out, I believe it was 7 demons. And so she is also the same one who took a rich ointment that could have been sold for a lot of money and used her hair to wipe Jesus' feet.
Okay. Anybody understand what Sister Robinson said? She gave a description of who that woman was. Now, according to the lesson, tell us she was an important woman, right? Not only that, she was an important woman, but she was a righteous person. Not only that, we could go on and just talk about her. She didn't forget where she came from, and she didn't forget the goodness of God. Sometimes people forget where they came from. Sometimes they forget the goodness of God. But she has some qualities in her. We observe that. We can just go on and talk about Mary Magdalene, of the kind of woman she was. Now, Mary Magdalene. Can we tell someone how many other Marys that was with her when she was standing by Jesus? How many other Marys?
I think 3. I know it was Mary, Jesus' mother, Mary Magdalene, and I thought it was another Mary. But I know for sure 2. Mary, Jesus' mom, and Mary Magdalene.
Okay, you did it right. You said good. But you said there was another Mary. Who was that other Mary? Can anybody said or give us, tell us who was that other Mary? Or was, go ahead.
I think she was, I'm just going from memory, but I think she was the wife of one of the, one of the men who followed Jesus, who was like a,
Okay.
yeah, like a servant, and she was the wife to that man.
Okay, she was the wife of Caiaphas.
Yeah.
Caiaphas. She was the one that Peter cut off the ears of her husband.
Oh.
Isn't that true?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would have
She
to
was a
research.
servant of Pilate.
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes.
Not Pilate. It was a Pilate or the high priest.
I thought it
Yeah,
was.
she was. Yeah, I think so. But she was the sister of Jesus' mother,
Oh, I
and
didn't.
the other Mary. In fact, there were 3 Marys.
Okay, so
One was Mary, the mother of Jesus, Caiaphas' wife, which is Mary's sister, the one you just mentioned there, and then Mary Magdalene. 3 of them. Now, it is important that we know because this question will be asked, you know. And sometimes people just ask questions for curiosity's sake. Sometimes they know, but they just want to know if you know, especially when we go to witness, and that's why we have to be ready, you know. We have to be ready that when those questions been asked, that we could answer them. And not only that, as people that do witnessing, they become teachers, right? When we witness, we teach. God raised us for that purpose. But when you go out there, tell people, it's like we're selling, not with money, but we're selling the word. We're bringing out the word. We're telling the story, yes, sister.
yeah, the Jesus said one plants, another waters, but God gives the growth.
That's right. And that's who we are. Paul do the planting, Apollos do the watering, and God give the increase. That's who we are. We are called ambassadors, and we are called stewards. So we have some titles behind us. Sometimes we don't carry them, or we don't use them, or we don't even know them, and know how important we are in the eyes of God. We may not look important in the eyes of people, right? But God raised us for a purpose. When we know Him, when we get to know Him, when we accept Him, when we love Him, and more to that, when we love people. Right? Because if you love people, you wouldn't want to see them going to hell. You want to tell them what you know, tell them about God. That's why we are called Christians. Christian means Christ-like. And Christ is loving. So we have to have the same attitude like Him and the same love in us like Him. Thanks God. And that's who we are. So we are talking about something again I saw in the lesson while I studied. The other disciple. Why did they call him the other disciple? And they did not talk much about him. I mean, given his name. Who was the other disciple?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay. The other disciple is John, John, not the Baptist, John, the other disciple, whom it says whom Jesus loved. I get the impression John might have been younger than some of the other disciples, but John is writing the book, so he seems to be very humble and not try to like make himself be a big shot. But he said Simon Peter and the other disciple whom Jesus loved. He was speaking about himself. He was the one who laid his head on Jesus' chest.
Okay. Now, you said he was the one that always rests on Jesus. So they were very close.
Mm-hmm.
Were they brothers or half brothers?
No.
You say no. Was that John called the John Divine or John the Revelator?
John the Revelator.
Okay. I heard a little whisper. I heard somebody say something.
He said John the Revelator.
Okay. Now, a question I want to ask. Was John the Revelator and John the Divine the same person?
I think John the Divine is John the Baptist. They
No.
said no greater other woman.
No, John the Divine is not John the Baptist.
I've never heard of
No.
John the Divine.
No, but the question I'm asking, was John the Revelator is John the Divine?
Who's John the Divine?
Are they the same person?
I never heard that.
Was he the same person? Were they the same person, John the Revelator or John the Divine?
Oh, I never heard of that term, John the Divine.
Okay, so we need to go back and look again. Now, when we say John the Revelator, what we really mean? Can we break it down to those that need to know? What is the other word for John the Revelator? Or what was its purpose? Or what work he did to be called John the Revelator? Come on now. Okay, so that's what we need to do. Yeah, you're saying something, bro?
Oh, I was telling him, can he say it in the
Yeah.
mic?
And that's what we need to do as Christians. We need to be positive of what we say. We need to know what we're saying and understand those things that we say, that we are right. Now, John the Revelator and John the Divine is the same person. They are the same person. Now, when we look at the Bible or study the Bible or the logo, we will see 3 Johns mentioned in the Bible. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. Now, they are the same person, but writing to different people or writing different books. The same guy that was on the island of Patmos, we have to know who he was. Who was that guy?
John.
Who John he was? Hmm?
John the Revelator.
Okay. John the Revelator or John the Divine, the same guy. And when you get to know those things, you feel happy in your spirit, right? Because you know about God, you know more about the Word, know more about the Lord. You don't get to know in order to brag. Get me, understand me clear, brethren. God does show us those things for us to brag or boast about it. But to be happy that we know the Lord and to know the word, the God's word. That we were born for that purpose. Now the time is moving on fast, but we're still in 10:35. Is it 10:35? Hmm? Okay, I have 10:35 on my watch, and I think I'm right. 10:36.
10:36.
10:36. So we're going good. Okay. So then, as we look at verse 4 of John 20, So they ran both together. Did I skip 3? Yes. Did I? Okay. Let's look at verse 3. So Peter therefore went forth, and the other disciple, and came to the sepulchre. That's where we are. That's where we are. We're just going to phone up for now. That's where we are. All this question being asked is in verse 3. That's where we are in verse 3. Peter therefore went forth, and the other disciple, that's why I asked, who was that other disciple? And we give the description of who that guy really was. All about the John the Divine, John the Revelator, in verse 3. And we can look in Luke chapter 24 and verse 12. Let's see what Luke chapter 24 and verse 12 say. It can be on the board, or you could put it up from the Bible. Anybody read it? Luke 24 and verse 12. It's on the board. Anybody read? Get a mic. And let's move on so we don't waste much time. So we could cover much ground, because we have to go until verse 8, which if we'll have them get there, I'm not sure.
Then arose Peter and ran unto the sepulchre, and stooping down, he beheld the linen clothes laid by themselves, and departed, wondering in himself at that which was come to pass. And behold, 2 of them went that same day to a village called Emmaus.
Amen. Okay, now but what are we doing there? We should not reading from. You're not reading from St. John. You're reading from Luke. That's why I didn't mind if you read that verse 13, 12 and 13. Doesn't matter. Because according to what Sister Rosie is doing there right now, she just bring reshuffling our mind. Right? That's why it is important to have reference verses. It reshuffles your mind and bring you back to the thing that you once learned. Now, as she talk about the road of Emmaus, that tell us something where the guys were coming from the countryside. Anybody remember that? When they were coming from the countryside and Jesus joined with them on that street? Anybody remember that? When he joined with them, the 2 men, when they was walking, that is after the day of the resurrection, after the day, Jesus was already crucified. And he was walking and talking about the story of what happened. And Jesus joined them on that street. Anybody remember that? Yeah. Let's remember it, and let's do it like let's take a glimpse of that street, if I say it that way. Because that's what story is all about. I love history. I love history because I love history so much. You know why? Because history would take me out from mystery. Right? You will get to love history when you walk out from mystery. Because mystery is an unknown thing. Something you're longing to know. Something you're craving to know. Something you would love to know. It is still mystery. Because you're wondering what it is. But when you get to know what it is no more mystery. It is uncovered. You get me? It's like getting a nice can of crackers or biscuit, what you love. And that man inside that thing, but you don't know what it is until you open it. Right? Until you open it and probably even take a taste of it. Then that thing you was watching or you was longing to know what was in the can all the time, you can only know when you open it and probably take a taste of it. So that time it becomes no more mystery, but it is history or a story that is told. And so many people tell that story that you wonder which one is right. But until you get the truth of what was told, it is still history or mystery until you get the real thing. So that's why I said I love history, because history becomes known to you. Do we get that? Do we understand that?
Yes.
It's like you have a problem, a sickness or whatever it is, and you don't know what it is until the doctor discovers what it is or get medicine for it. Then you're happy now because you know the root of the problem. And history is the root of the problem, or the known things that is no more unknown. Now, it might be said in some other way if we look up in the dictionary, because we'll see different definitions for mystery and history. If we dig deeper, more we dig, the more we dig, is more we'll get. You have more than one definition. No, one definition, but different. It is placed in different ways. If you want to know what I'm trying to say, it is placed down different ways in the word, in the writing, but it means the same thing. Okay, so let's look at verse 4. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter and came to the sepulchre. That's verse 4. Back in John. John chapter 4, 20 and verse 4. He outrun Peter. Now, as you said, Sister Renee, a little earlier on, probably John was one of the youngest one, right? He was younger than the other disciples. So then, he had some strength in him, and we presume that he was younger than Peter. But so he was able to outrun him or pass him. But while I was studying that, something came to my mind. As we often learn, the race is not for the swift, but the race is for they that endure to the end. Peter probably had less speed, but we'll see something that Peter did that John didn't do right away. It's like two of us running, and you pick up speed and you pass me. But when you reach close to the winning pole, you stop, because you overrun me, but you get tired. And you didn't have enough strength to go over that pole. And I come and I win you. You know that often happens, right? With all the speed you have, but when you get to the winning line, you stop behind the winning line, but I come and I jump over. Boy, that's a sad thing. Isn't that true? It is very sad. You pick up so much speed that you pass me and everybody say, "Oh, look, she win the old man." Or look, you win the old man. But the old man come and he jump over the line and still leave you standing. And you can eat yourself that time. Something like that happened to John and Peter. Peter came, John passed him, but John came stooping down and looking in. But Peter came and go right in. We will see that. Let's look at verse 5. Verse 5. Very quick. It's on a board, or you can read it from the Bible.
So you want to read it?
Yeah, read verse 5.
And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went he not in.
Okay. Take verse 6 also.
Then cometh Simon Peter following him, and went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie.
Okay, we could pause there a little before we take it to last verses. That's what we're talking about. He came stooping down. That's who came stooping down? Okay. He came stooping down and looking inside. And a lot of things may go through his mind. Isn't that true?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things may have gone through his mind.
Yeah. Where is he?
No, no. Any one of us, that would happen to us. What is one thing that would come to our mind?
Where is he?
Hmm?
What happened to him?
When we look, that's right. What happened to him? What happened to him? Yes?
And in Jewish culture, you weren't supposed to be around the dead. You know, if you went around a dead, if you went into the sepulcher and you weren't supposed to be around a person who had died because it would make you unclean. So you had to do a bunch of stuff to become clean again. So his hesitation, I think, all of those things ran through his head.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
I look at John hesitating to go inside. Now, remember Jesus had told them he will rise in 3 days. But when he looked and he didn't see him, he didn't go in. And he didn't question because Jesus had already told them. Well, for me, I don't think that he was thinking about associating with the dead because Peter went right in. It's just that as a human being, when something like that happens, we don't want to go close because we don't know what is in there, who is in there. You see, so, but anyway.
Okay. Now, yeah, I could think that way too. Well, they both actually make sense, right? Because we know that according to Jewish law, now when someone dies, you don't go close to them. But in that case of the brethren, they wouldn't think of that at that time. At that time, knowing that your Lord died, and you focus in thinking of him, and sometimes even forget he talk about he will rise again. But you would move with a haste to get to that line, or get to see to look at what you saw on the ground at that time.
Okay. In time of the law, the Jews practice stuff that is in the law. But when Christ came, he told them, I am the end of the law.
Yes.
So they were not looking and thinking about, dead bodies. They are not supposed to go in there. And they were not thinking about that because when Jesus died, they went to the thing anyway. So it's I don't know exactly how to phrase it. But I'm just saying the apostles, Christ was the end of the law to them. So they were not thinking about pots and pans.
Okay. But with all the pots and pans, we had to stop now.
A few scriptures down, it says that they didn't know that. When we continue reading, it says that they didn't know.
Okay.
I'm just making a
point.
Just a comment on that when John looked in there, he had a double interest because it was his tomb. He owned the thing. John owned the tomb. So he had John.
Who owned the tomb?
John. Wasn't Christ buried in John's tomb?
No. It wasn't John that owned the tomb.
It wasn't. Oh, Joseph.
It was Joseph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
apologize.
Yeah, but actually, we're going to stop now.
I know y'all didn't know I made mistakes, you know, but
Yeah,
I do every now and then.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But let's stop now. Okay. So we stop on 6, right?
Yeah.
We will take up 7 next week if the Lord said the same. But it's very interesting. Those verses are very interesting, and we need to really practice them.